Hello, and welcome back to Uncultured Twenties. My name is Julia.
And my name is Lian.
And this podcast will be a journey of us culturally educating ourselves in what is considered classic in pop culture.
Think media people would say, you've never seen that?
Yep, any films, albums, books, music videos, you name it. We go over our initial impressions and why we think it's made its way into the canon.
Films like Fight Club and Mean Girls.
Or albums like Supa Dupa Fly and Remain in the Light.
Or even books. We're always open to suggestions, so keep up with us at Uncultured Twenties on Instagram and TikTok, and we're also on Letterboxd at Uncultured Twenties, and that's with the 20s.
Today, we're diving into the Brennaisance with the 1999 film The Mummy.
Uncultured Twenties. So, I have a joke for you, Jules.
Okay, I'm ready.
How did the mummy get so rich?
How?
Cryptocurrency.
No. Well, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
I know. I think it's a pretty modern, in the times joke.
Yes.
Mummies, I feel like, are a classic, classic Halloween, classic joke, classic trope.
Yeah.
And here we are watching The Mummy. Definitely a different vibe from our last episode when we were watching Castle in the Sky, but also kind of similar in like a whimsical sort of way with a lot of like, I don't even know.
A lot of like out there, fantastic kind of things going on.
Yeah, definitely like fantastical, lots of creatures. There was also a boat, although the one in Castle in the Sky was like an airboat. This one was a water boat.
Yeah. There's something there.
Yeah.
The Mummy is directed by Stephen Sommers and stars Rachel Weisz and, of course, Brendan Fraser.
He's really been boosted back into the public eye after a decade or so away from the spotlight.
He was the darling of TIFF with his starring role in The Whale, and I think everyone sort of rediscovered their love for him recently.
George of the Jungle was a 90s childhood staple, and Encino Man is hilarious. Young Brendan Fraser is really so charming, and, I guess that didn't go away with time.
Yeah, he definitely was the internet's hashtag man of the month for a bit, in a wholesome but also infantilizing sort of way.
Yeah, the same thing is happening with Ke Huy Quan and Everything Everywhere All at Once right now. And, maybe it's because these stars of our childhood are, like, getting the recognition that we feel that they deserve, but it's really random that it's all happening right now.
Yeah, all at once. I mean, it's great to see them all so happy and reuniting with each other and talking about doing reboots and sequels. It's just great to see all around.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I'm rooting for them because there's been a lot of controversy regarding why Brendan Fraser left the industry, and all I'm gonna say is that I'm happy that he's back, and I'm literally the biggest Encino Man fan. I watched it for the first time last year, and I think I've watched it like 3 times since then. It's so funny.
That's another one I'm gonna have to add to the list because I have not seen it.
You really will. It's so good. Pauly Shore is fantastic. And also the guy from Lord of the Rings is in it. What's his name? Sean. Is his name Sean? He's in Stranger Things. He plays Bob.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I don't remember his name, but he's Sam in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So it's actually like a really packed list, and they're all super young in it. So it's a good one, and it's on Disney Plus. So
okay, I'll add it to the list.
There you go.
Okay, so going into The Mummy, have you seen it before?
I have not. This was my first time watching it. I was actually sort of saving it for the pod.
Nice.
Because of the whole Brennaisance thing, especially last September, like we said, when TIFF was happening. Everyone was talking about Brendan Fraser, especially with The Mummy. A lot of people were saying they were my bisexual awakening in The Mummy because Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser are in it, and they're both young and so beautiful and charming in it. And the two of them together, their chemistry is really great. So I can definitely see why people hold that film close to their heart, if they watched it growing up. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I love Rachel Weisz in, what's that film? Disobedience.
Don't know that one. So, this is just the theme. Don't know that.
This is literally the pod.
I guess this is the whole idea, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Wow, I'm just hearing about all these things.
Yeah, so this is my first time. I was really looking forward to watching it because of, Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz and just hearing what all the talk was about. Have you seen it before?
I feel like I honestly have not seen it in full before this. It's like one of those movies where like when I was a kid and I had a stomach ache at like 2 a.m., I would go downstairs and like my dad would still be awake watching movies on TV. And like I would just sit with him for like half an hour until I fell back asleep. So I don't know if that's like a shared experience, but I just have
It
like,
completely
there's a
is.
couple of movies that I'm like, I really don't know if I've ever seen the whole thing because I just see clips of it like on TV.
I still do that with my dad.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that's I think that's the only time I've seen it. So this was the first time that I've really seen the movie in full. And it's funny because I just saw The Whale recently, like maybe a couple months ago. And so to see that and then going back to seeing this film, which like obviously he was much younger, and it's just like obviously such a different different film, different vibes completely. So it's funny, like I mean, I feel like I haven't seen a Brendan Fraser movie, just like one of his older movies, even in such a long time, and then to see them both so close together, I'm like, oh yeah, like Brendan Fraser.
What did you think of The Whale? I actually haven't seen it yet. I haven't gotten to it.
um, it was after like when I first saw it in the movie, I was very overwhelmed because it's a very sad movie. It's a lot to sort of take in when you first see it, but then like giving it some time thinking on it. I mean, I think that in general, it wasn't my favorite movie, but I do agree that Brendan Fraser did a really amazing job portraying the character. I know there were some controversies about casting like a thinner actor as this person and doing the prosthetics and everything like that. But you are sort of immersed by his acting in the film. So I don't know. I thought it was not my favorite film, also just because it was so sad and leaving it, I was so sad. But yeah, Brendan Fraser did a really good job.
He really has so much versatility. I think now, especially that he's
Mm-hmm.
older and he's capable of fulfilling different roles, because I think before, he's definitely like kind of an eye candy sort of actor. It's like, George of the Jungle, I feel like he doesn't have a shirt on in that movie.
Yeah.
Encino Man, he's also kind of paraded, like he's definitely like the charming, cute like guy, and then in this one he's like the swashbuckling rescue adventurer, and so now that he's older and on the other side of things, he can really showcase his talent.
Yeah, cool to see what he's capable of and not just being like hero man in action movie.
Yeah, and he's Canadian too, right? So I feel like it's even more intensified up, like living in Canada.
Yeah,
Everybody's like,
very
yes,
close to our hearts. Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah.
So why don't we give everybody a little? We'll go through the film and kind of outline the major plot points. There will be spoilers ahead, but this is from the '90s, so too bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but you can watch it after and it's fine. Synopsis. Spoilers ahead. All right, so the film starts with a flashback to ancient Egypt of the pharaoh's wife having an affair with Imhotep, one of the pharaoh's priests. They kill the pharaoh, and then his wife, Anksunamun,
Yeah.
kills herself. Okay, so that Imhotep can resurrect her. The resurrection goes wrong, and the pharaoh's bodyguards curse Imhotep. It's a pretty gnarly scene. They cut off his tongue and they mummify him alive.
Yeah, watching that, I was like, that is not how I want to go.
Yeah, no, not
Yeah,
ideal.
also just like killing yourself and being like, okay, it's okay, he'll resurrect me. I'm like, all right, girl, like this is intense.
Yeah, that's a lot of trust and like hope that things are gonna work out. But all right,
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
you.
And then we flash to the 1920s, which I also didn't realize. I think I might have missed the part where they said it was in the 1920s. So,
Yeah, I did not know that. I thought it was. I mean, I assumed it was just like kind of more back in the day, but
yeah,
didn't
I
know
was
that.
like,
Yeah.
oh, they filmed it in like the 90s. I guess it's just set in the 90s. But when I was reading, I was like, oh, it's in the 20s. That makes so much more sense. I was like, why are there
Yeah.
like all these colonizers just living in Egypt with like history books and teaching? I was like, it doesn't make sense. But now thinking back, like the 1920s is when all of those expeditions happened.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I was doing some research on the film, they actually named Rachel Weisz's character after the daughter of one of the people who was there for Tutankhamun's excavation. So fun little trivia there.
Okay, cool.
But I guess this was the era of the Egyptian era of
when
all the explorers and everyone were going over there. And when I say explorers, I really do just mean colonizers and people who stole stuff that still exists in the British Museum today.
That's exactly what I was thinking. British Museum. When are those gonna ever be released from there? Never?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely shows the time of the movie for sure. Like, it's like, oh, this romantic story of when they were out there exploring the wild lands of Egypt or something, and now we're like, okay, so they're just colonizers.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Rachel Weisz is this like mousy, shy librarian named Evelyn, and she's working in Cairo. And her brother Jonathan is kind of a little thief guy. He brings a box that contains a map to this lost city of the dead, which is called Hamanuptra, I believe. That's how they pronounce it in the film.
Yeah.
And he stole this box from Brendan Fraser's character, Rick O'Connell, who's this other adventurer guy who's locked up in prison.
Evelyn and Jonathan go to find Rick and bail him out of prison on the condition that he'll take them to Hamanuptra. They team up with an American group, but their boat gets ambushed by the Magi army, who are in charge of protecting Imhotep's remains to make sure that he never gets released. The Magi warn the team, but they continue on to Hamunaptra, of course, and begin to dig.
Yeah, when their boat got ambushed, I was like, whoa, action's happening pretty quick.
Yeah.
They didn't even get there yet.
They didn't even get to the excavation part.
But when they do get to the excavation, the American team and the, I guess, British team are sort of on separate sides. They're like, we're going to do our own thing. You do your own thing. And Evelyn ends up finding Imhotep's remains, while the Americans discover his organs and this Black Book of the Dead. Evelyn is casually reading from the book and just, accidentally awakens him. Egypt 101, you don't just read from some ancient crumbling book in front of a dead body.
Like, what? Nothing good is going to come from that.
So Imhotep kind of, is this spirit character CGI guy, and he slowly starts to kill the Americans, and I think the theory is that every time he kills one of them, he sort of gets a part of their body, so he steals one of their tongues and then he's able to speak again.
Imhotep follows the team back to Cairo. They basically are like, okay, we need to get right out of here right now and head back, but he does follow them and brings 10 plagues with him. He also creates an army of sort of zombie-esque slaves to capture Evelyn, who he wants to sacrifice in order to bring back his dead lover. She literally waited so long to be resurrected by him, like just hoping someone's gonna open that tomb, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, proves men ain't shit, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, can we speed it up? It's been like how many years? Anyways, the team comes to rescue Evelyn and end up reading from another ancient book to make Imhotep human. Rick, Brendan Fraser, then kills him, and they make their daring escape as Hamunaptra crumbles down.
The film felt a lot longer than what we just summarized. I don't know if it was just me, but the film felt very long.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of just like meandering around. I don't know. Yeah, I just thought that things would be happening faster. Like it was like bursts of action, but then they go back to Cairo. They're like, oh, it's all good. And they go back. And then, he starts killing more people and all these things. So
yeah,
I don't know. It did feel long.
There were a lot of characters as well. It was a little hard to keep track. Mm-hmm. Like, the main three are sort of Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, and her brother, Jonathan. And then there's like the sort of Egyptian guy that tags along with them that they bribed to get him out of prison. So he's sort of their local guide who's taking them on the mission, but also like wants to make sure that because they promised him a percentage of the loot. So he wants to protect his investment basically. And then there's all these like Americans and then the Magi who like are these ancient protectors, and then there's like Evelyn's boss, the librarian, who's secretly part of the Magi. So there was a lot going on.
True. Honestly, I kind of forgot about a lot of those extra people. Even their tour guide, isn't isn't he just killed or something? Like he just kind of disappears.
I don't even remember. Like, and then there's also one of the guys who's with the American team, and then he gets recruited by Imhotep. Like, he's sort of his
Right.
main right-hand man, and the only reason why he was chosen was because he could speak, was it Hebrew?
Yeah, he goes through every religion and then speaks Hebrew, and he's
That
like,
was a
oh.
funny scene.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
And it's like, that's the only language old enough that Imhotep actually recognized, and he's sort of like, so a secondary bad guy. So there's just a lot going on,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the energy bursts of, like, there's the boat, and then there's like all this action, and then they land on the sand, and then they like have a deep conversation and like a steamy conversation. Like, yeah, so I was gonna ask, like, what would you even classify the genre as? Like, I think they're trying to be horror, but then there's like romance, there's action. What would you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely I was reading about it as well, and it was the idea originally was that it's supposed to be this horror film, with like horror monster film or whatever, but it definitely didn't even feel like a horror film. Like, aside from the CGI, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but um yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like an action adventure romance kind of film, but just in like sporadically in parts. Like, it would be like action, and then it'd be like, oh, also we want to have some romance in there, so like let's get these characters together. Oh, but then we have to remember that we're doing film is about a mummy, and so we have to go back and make them fight the mummy, but then also they're gonna have a little moment at night by the fire themselves, and it's like gonna be romantic and whatever. So I guess just it was like kind of like a rom-com and an adventure film mixed together. Like, I don't know, it was, yeah, definitely not horror though, which I think was the original intention, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I going into it, I don't know what I was expecting. Like, I thought it was maybe, action. And then I kind of got hints, like, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, they're trying to make it horror, but it's not it's not very scary. And
Yeah.
like, I really would have wished that they focused more on the romance. It just was a lot. And then it's also kind of this twist on Romeo and Juliet with Imhotep and their long lost love story as well. And it's like, I do kind of feel bad for him. Like, he was buried alive, and now he's just trying to find his wife, like his girl. And also, like you said, CGI. I mean, it's natural. It's gonna happen that as films get older and older, they're just not gonna hold up. But I think it's beyond the CGI. It's just so much about this film that I don't think holds up.
Talking about the CGI, I as I was watching it, like, obviously it's so 90s, like, it's just like, I mean, they didn't have the tools that we have now, but as I'm watching, I'm thinking it's almost timeless in a sense, because I feel like even at the time when the movie came out, like, nobody is looking at it and thinking, wow, this is like amazing, looks so realistic. So it almost becomes like funny to me watching it later and just seeing like where we were and where we are now, and just in general how it all looks. Even in scenes, like in scenes where people are killed and stuff, they'll just like pan to a wall and you'll see like the shadows of people getting killed. So it's just like all these things to like avoid having to actually do some like crazy CGI, which I thought was so funny, and like obviously makes sense if you don't have like the capability to make it look super realistic. But yeah, I just thought that was so funny.
You know what this film really reminded me of was Scooby Doo.
No, true, yeah.
Like the live action one
Yeah.
where they go to Spooky Island, which is one of my all-time favorite
Good
films.
film, yeah.
But I think the difference between that is, like, Scooby Doo is very self-aware and almost satirical.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like maybe trying to be a bit more genuine, but just missed the mark. And then also with the whole, they have the key that holds the map and it sort of opens, and it reminded me of that thing in Scooby-Doo where it was like the pyramid that opened and then they have like the ancient sort of language. It was giving the same vibes.
Yeah, so who did it better, the Mummy or Scooby-Doo?
have to say Scooby Doo. I'm sorry.
Scooby Doo, maybe, yeah.
One thing I really did like about it was like the setting and the background. I believe they filmed in Morocco. It was beautiful, and it looked really accurate, and I like that it wasn't all just on a green screen in some place. And ancient Egypt, I feel, is such a special interest for kids.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, the whole Egyptology books.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. I can picture it in my head, and like the little jewels and like all the things that you get to touch.
The red gem right
in the middle, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder why were we so obsessed with ancient Egypt?
It's true, and I feel like that was such a universal experience for kids, and like I don't know, I still find ancient Egypt interesting now, but it's not like I'm like going and doing research on it. But like when I was a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool, like mummies. And like we would go to the ROM, the museum, and like go see that they had like a mummy exhibit or something. I'm pretty sure
we saw the exact same exhibit.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like what? Like I don't know why that was such a thing. Maybe because it's like I mean, it's all shiny, all the gold, whatever, like on a very basic level, but also maybe because it's like mummies, you know, mummies in media like are monsters and horror things, and it's like, oh, they're actually also a real thing that you can go see. So maybe that's why compared to like other monster movies that they don't exist, but I don't know, just some fascination with it.
I feel like it's also kind of like with Greek mythology, it's like they have a very complete almost like lore. Like they have a very complete, like these are all the gods, these gods stand for this. It's very like understandable versus like a Christianity thing where it's like one all-knowing god. Like this is like very, you know, it's personality test, like which Egyptian god is your like, you know, patron or something that. And funny story, I know how you said it's almost a universal experience, but I have a friend who actually is terrified of ancient Egypt.
Oh, okay.
She, for some reason, when she was a kid, she was just terrified by all of ancient Egypt. And when she had wishes, like at a fountain or at 11:11, she used to wish that ancient Egypt never existed.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that funny?
Is so funny. It's like ancient Egypt, it's done, like it's okay, it's not coming back for you. Like that is awesome.
I know, it's like just a fear of the whole like era,
just the whole
it's like thing. I just wish it never existed.
It's not even like a mummy or something, it's like all of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, you know, okay, you don't have to go to like modern day Egypt or anything too, like it's okay. This is really not gonna. That is so funny.
It's just funny, like the way she worded it. She's like, I just wished it never existed. I'm like, that's hilarious.
Were the pyramids built by aliens?
No.
I
can believe a lot of things were built by aliens, but I don't believe that pyramids were built by aliens.
Pop quiz. We are gonna test each other and you.
So now it's our pop quiz time. I'm asking the questions and Julia will be guessing the answers today. You can play along at home if you'd like. Okay, you ready?
I guess so.
First question. What animal is Imhotep afraid of? A, snakes, B, beetles, or C, cats?
This one I know. It's cats. I love that he's afraid of cats. I think that's such a fun detail to have in there. I love when the little cat comes in the movie and he freaks out and they're like, "Oh, this is how we solve this problem. A cat."
And then my second question, who had a near-death experience while filming The Mummy? A, Brendan Fraser, B, Rachel Weisz, or C, Kevin J. O'Connor, who plays the brother?
So I actually know the answer to this one too, I think. This one is Brendan Fraser when he was doing the scene where he was almost hanged.
And he actually passed out. Yeah. And they had to perform CPR on him.
Yeah. He's like, this is a little bit too realistic. Like the rest of the movie, obviously not realistic, you can see, but then you're like, oh, something really happened here.
You know, when I was watching the hanging scene, I was like, damn, he's there for a long time. Yeah. Like, what?
You're like, wow, he's doing an amazing performance, and it's like really,
clap,
it's not a performance at all.
just dying. Yeah. I was watching an interview with Brendan Fraser where he was, those ones where they go over like all of their iconic films, and he was talking about it. And when he was talking about The Mummy, because there's actually three films in the series, I have no idea what could be covered in 2 and 3 since they killed him. But he said that he liked to perform a lot of the stunts himself, and he actually ended up injuring his back on set, and he went through multiple surgeries, which is one of the many reasons why he stepped away from the movie industry for such a long time. Yeah, some actors,
they go for it. Yeah.
They dedicated to their craft.
Okay, so how are you categorizing The Mummy?
Are you joining the cult? Adding it to the list? Or hiding the fans are after me?
I think I would say hiding the fans are after me. I added it to the list. I watched it, and now I am removing it from the list. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can see myself rewatching it. There wasn't enough, like I said, it felt super long. There wasn't enough to keep me interested, and if I wanted Brendan Fraser, I'm gonna be watching Encino Man.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I don't think this one was for me, and I feel bad saying it. It's only our second episode, and we're already turning one down. But that's my honest point.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think I have to agree with you. I saw those clips when I was a kid on TV, or those snippets of it, and watching it in full, I don't think I'll need to watch it again. Yeah, nice to see Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, and always funny to see 90s films with their special effects. And not to say that he didn't do a good job, because I thought that they both did a great job. It was fine, but definitely just not a movie that I really care to see again. So same thing. It was on the list, but now I'm going to be hiding because the fans are after me.
Yeah, I think that if we had watched it, when we were kids and we were really fond of it, I can totally see it being different. But because I don't have that connection, I think gotta pass. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just a cheesy action adventure sort of film at this point. So, yeah.
Insert villain,
insert hero, man, and love interest. Insert villain.
Exactly. And speaking of, was Rachel Weisz like the only woman in this film?
That is a good question, and I think
except for Imhotep's girl who sacrificed herself
at the beginning. Yeah, I think she might be.
Yeah, that also I think might be another reason why I didn't like it. Just too much guy energy. I was like, okay. They had so many characters, and not one of them could have been another woman.
True. Yeah.
And especially being in Egypt, I feel like they could have had more characters from Egypt.
Yeah.
They had the warriors and people helping them, but they were all very secondary, very much like staff almost.
Yeah.
And then they had the main characters, the white people. So
the white people.
The white people. I mean, they died, but
yeah. Well, there's that.
There's that. But overall, just not the rep. Let's keep it in the 90s, and maybe we can make a movie about what if ancient Egypt never existed.
Oh, maybe your friend would watch that.
I don't know if she would. I think she'd be like, I don't want to see anything related to
the whole
it.
concept. Yeah, the whole thing is just a big no for her. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it from us. Connect with us on Letterboxd at Uncultured 20s 20s to see all the films we've covered, or our Spotify to see our playlist at Uncultured 20s TWENTIES.
We're also on Instagram at Uncultured 20s. That's TWENTIES. We take tons of input on there, so if you feel like there's something really iconic that we need to cover, that's where you gotta go.
Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts so that you're notified when our episodes drop. We're on all major platforms.
We're Uncultured 20s, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
Uncultured 20s.